Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Welcome back, Mr. Secretary. It is disappointing that in your submitted written statement for today's hearing, you failed to mention the ongoing, over 1 month long crisis in Venezuela. The administration is condemning Maduro's use of force against the peaceful protesters in Venezuela, but voicing a concern is not enough. One of the opposition leaders, Leopoldo Lopez, was unjustly arrested and has been imprisoned, isolated in a military jail now for 24 days as Maduro attempts to silence dissent in Venezuela. 3 more people died yesterday as a result of Maduro's violent suppression, bringing the sad tally to 24 dead since the protests began. The President issued an executive order that would impose sanctions against Russian officials responsible for human rights abuses, and I've written to the President asking that he do the same for Venezuela. Maduro continues to get help from the Castro regime. As you know, they've been sending Cuban troops to crack down on the Venezuelan protesters. Will the President hold these violators in Venezuela responsible and sanction individual human rights abusers in Venezuela? And continuing with the theme of accountability, Mr. Secretary, I have doubts that accountability and oversight over the Palestinian Authority finances are actually taking place. As Ranking Member Engel just stated, Abu Mazen repeatedly reaffirms his refusal and unwillingness to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. He continues to pay nearly $5 million a year now the salaries of Palestinians who were imprisoned in Israeli jails, many of whom have blood on their hands. In fact, just yesterday, as you know, dozens of rockets were fired at Israel from Gaza. So this serves as a grim reminder that Israel continues to be under attack. And in the West Bank, hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars continue to flow to the PA, wishing and hoping and praying that they'll do the right thing. What are you doing to ensure that the PA recognizes and accepts Israel as a Jewish state? Money is fungible, so one could say that U.S. taxpayer dollars are being used to pay the salaries of these terrorists. Would you say that that is true? And the administration is still seeking a waiver authority to fund agencies at the United Nations that admit a non-existent Palestine state. Abu Mazen has repeatedly reaffirmed that if the peace process fails to produce an agreement, the Palestinians will make a full-out push at the UN to get statehood. You said that withholding our money would not deter Abu Mazen, but I say that it very clearly could deter UN agencies, so we cannot allow this waiver authority to undermine the peace process. And in addition, I'd like to submit, lastly, for the record, a letter to President Obama requesting that the administration consider giving those at Camp Liberty in Iraq the opportunity to receive political refugee status for those who are eligible. So sanction Abu Mazen and UN. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Well, Congresswoman, that's a lot to handle very quickly, and I'll try and do it as fast as I can. But let me just say to you on the issue of the oversight of the Palestinian Authority and their position on Israel, we begin with the premise that everything we're doing in this negotiation begins with Israel's security, which has to be addressed. And I think Prime Minister Netanyahu would tell you that we have bent over backwards and are working extremely closely with him in order to do that.
If we could just segue, I'm sorry, to Venezuela then, Mr.
Yeah,
Secretary.
but I want to finish one thing on that because it's really important. Our position is that Israel has to be recognized ultimately as a Jewish state. But please remember, they're negotiating. Nobody's going to give up. I mean, you know, by the same token, Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't stand up and say, hey, here's how I'm going to give you Jerusalem or something. Everybody's negotiating. And they aren't going to make those decisions until they know what they're getting in other respects. On the next issue of the UN waiver, please, I got to tell you, this is a very one-sided event against us. Abu Mazen, if he writes a letter to the UN, to 63 agencies, is automatically in them tomorrow. Automatic. He's an observer state. That vote was taken. 140-something to, I think, 9. 140-something to 9.
Yet we tried in the budget to try to get
I know,
UN the money,
but
and that was wrong of us.
what I want to explain to you is whether or not the United States loses its vote and gets punished for him going is irrelevant to him. He'll go because it's a tool for him to be able to do things he hopes that, make life miserable for Israel.
But, Mr. Secretary,
for
we
us.
should not
We
fund
lose our
UNESCO
vote.
if they do that.
I'm going to
beg your pardon?
make a suggestion.
We should not fund UNESCO when they do this.
We're down
Well,
to
it's-
0 time left in the vote.
But if I can just say to you, when you say
Absolutely,
not
Mr. Secretary.
funding UNESCO, we're losing our vote. We can't defend Israel in UNESCO. We can't defend any of our other interests. We're not there. We're gone because they went. And they'll go again if they think it's in their best interest. And who'll pay the price? The United States of America. We won't be able to vote. So I'm just saying to you, this is a wrong-headed effort for deterrence. It won't deter them. It will hurt us. We
Thank
believe
you.
we need
And
a
I hope
waiver.
we get to Venezuela in the next round. Thank you.
No, but I'll just tell you, on Venezuela, we're absolutely, we need to, and we are, not only speaking out, but taking steps. Vice President Biden was just down in Chile for the swearing in of the new president. We met with a number of neighbors, states down there. We are engaged now with trying to find a way to get the Maduro government to engage with their citizens, to treat them respectfully, to end this terror campaign against his own people, and to begin to, hopefully, respect human rights and the appropriate way of treating his people. And we think it's time for the OAS, for the neighbors, for partners, and other international organizations to all focus on Venezuela appropriately, hold them accountable.
This committee will stand in